Greetings, this is Jeff Scott, and I'm going to do a video today, probably be about 20 to 30 minutes. And the topic of my video is how I prospect for great stocks using the recent integration of the John Person Indicator add-on set in HGSI. My email address is hgsidoc@gmail.com. I'm a doc who uses HGSI. That's the only affiliation. But if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I'll see if I can't struggle for an answer. As always, this is for educational purposes only. Anything I recommendation in the spirit of education, not investment advice. I'm a doctor, not a broker. I am independent. I do not provide education or tools for money. I am a trader who likes to use tools, and I am not affiliated with either the HGSI software program or personsplanet.com, and in fact, I've paid for the tools that I demonstrate. Trading involves risk. You and your loan are solely responsible for any investment decisions you make. For those that don't know HGSI, it is a very powerful tool. There is a learning curve, and that's why I gave you my email address, because if you're a new user to HGSI, one, I can give you a coupon that if you use before the end of your demo month, you'll save $100. And two, I have a series of videos that show how I use HGSI. So I'd be more than happy to share both of those with any new users. The videos I'll share with any user. On HGSI, that demo or free 30-day trial, by clicking up here, there's not even a request for a credit card. And under investing strategies, you'll see hundreds of videos by myself, Ron Brown, and others. It's important to note that both packages are sold separately. You have to own HGSI or be on an HGSI trial to use or purchase John's indicator set. The indicators alone don't help you, at least in this set, and HGSI does not come with John's indicators built in. Now, John and I occasionally have the opportunity to do some education down here in South Florida. Hopefully next year we'll actually be able to go to hotels and invite people down, and if so, I'd be happy to see you then. So, without further ado, let's take a look at this great implementation of John's tools. Now, I've been a fan of John and user of John's stuff for probably 15 years now. And the reason why I have Trade Navigator, a lot of the other things I have, is because, frankly, I learned that from John. This is the HGSI icon. I'm going to double click on it. Now, it's going to open up a bunch of windows. Now, what I'm going to do is show you how on the main menu, how you update the program. Updates are available starting around 5:30 for end of day updates. I believe there's a first update around 5:30, a second update around 8, and then, well, after 7, say in the East Coast. And then there's another update first thing in the morning. Pretty much you get prices updated on the early update. The 7 p.m. update starts to include some fundamental updates, as well as updates on pricing if there's any error correction. And then the update in the morning is sort of a correction update if there's any errors, as well as additional fundamental data. Now, this is an end-of-day equity ETF trading program. It does not trade futures or Forex, and the charts do not go below daily, weekly, and monthly. I use this program along with Thinkorswim and TradeStation, as this is also not a broker platform where you can input trades. What this is to me is the best top-down tool with the fastest update of John's scans and other scans that you might have. It's a full-featured program. What I'm going to highlight tonight are some of the things that I find useful in using John's indicator set. Now, although it's an end-of-day program per se, it has been engineered differently over the last couple of years that allows an intraday update. You can choose from a number of vendors to provide that: Thinkorswim, IEX Cloud. The other two I'm not familiar with. IEX Cloud is built in and free. Thinkorswim, you have to have an account. I think paper trading accounts are fine though. And you can either do manual updates, or you can even set it to update every 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. So this will do a price update, or as long as you have Enable Intraday, Thinkorswim, or other checked. If you have Thinkorswim, you have Thinkorswim opened, then when I do my nightly updates, which is right here, come on. If I have update and include intra data, it fools the program into thinking it's the end of the day, and it will run all your scans just as if the day's over. So I like to run this at 3:30 and at 10:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, to see sort of what's happened with the morning run, and then do another look about half hour before the close to see if there's any trades I might want to put in. It also will push data to other programs like Metastock. So I don't think there's an active update. Right now it says 10:36 p.m. Let me just see if there's an update. If there is, I will pause the video and we'll see how long it took. It's 10:37 now, update. Nope, no update. So, all right. So I've got the basic product sitting here, and each of these buttons has a function, and I cover them in those free videos. Now, one nice thing about HGSI compared to some other programs, the data is stored on your hard drive. That makes charting fast. It also, by the proprietor of HGSI, they maintain the various indexes, the components of the various ETFs, in case that was something you were interested in, the components of the various indexes, etc. And not only do they include new stocks when they come out and delete old stocks, but they also manage the splits, so you don't have to worry about that. So the true power of HGSI to me is both a bottoms-up or a top-down approach. So let's start with a bottoms-up approach. To me, a bottoms-up approach would mean I want to find stocks that meet certain criteria, and I want to scan for them. So I'm going to highlight all securities. Now, a lot of times when I do my work, I limit my trading universe, and I have a universe here of stocks that are 5 and 500. But the base settings that I put when I put together what I show you now, the views, was 250 on price and 250,000 on shares. So I'm going to hit the warehouse view, and it's going to open up here. It says all securities, and then all daily. I want to go into the bullish sector, which is right here, and I want to look at, I sort by raw combo, and we'll explain all those to you in the videos. But I want to look at the strongest stocks in the market. Now, perhaps I want to see all the stocks that had a new person buy signal today. So I've set this up that if I click here, and again, I'm starting with 8,817 instruments. And as I go to person daily buy, I see there's 62 new daily buys. So by definition, if I was to look at any of these stocks, and let's look, see if there's one here that I may have bought today or I was looking at. That's interesting. Let's look at Owens & Minor. This is a distributor of med surg products, and it's in a business that I used to compete with. I'd sold a business to AmerisourceBergen and a business to Cardinal Health. So what I've set up here is a daily John Person chart. It's got monthly, weekly, and daily pivots in here. It's hard to see the daily pivots. I had to spread it out some. If I don't want to have the pivots, I could take away those support and resistance pivots and look at just the chart. But I'm going to leave them on for right now. What I've set up here are a number of indicators. Now this arrow here, it's kind of a fat arrow, and it's a fat arrow, one, to make it easy to see, but because it has a B in it for a buy, or the red one actually has an S in it for sell. Now I could go into the program setup, just edit current view, and I could look at person buy sell indicator, and I could actually change it to just a simple arrow, which is smaller and will take up less space, as you could see it here. Now I also recognize that the signal fired here, but the uptrend continues often until I get an opposite signal. So I show you the initial instance of the signal, and then on this bar here, it's basically a ribbon. This is when it was in a person buy, a person sell, and so on and so forth. Underneath here is the person market catcher, and below that is just a volume, and I'm using on balance volume with a moving average. In this top box where my arrowhead is, HGSI has a series of windows for fundamentals. It will tell you what a company does. Healthcare supply channel, I only know that because I was working in that industry. If I click the down arrow, it gives me dividend yield over time, and you're able to see, boy, they took a hit on their dividend in 2019, didn't they? Assuming that the year is over by now. I can look at December 19th compared to December 18th and look at year-over-year revenue or EPS change. So each here is compared to the prior like quarter, and this gives me a graph of the next 2 quarters on earnings and revenue expectations. Down here it shows me the upcoming quarter, which we can see here the earnings date is May 6th, and this is the following quarter. I found over time that the upcoming quarter is useful, but when you get more than a quarter out, they become less and less accurate. You have the group, the industry it comes in, the multiple, the volume is here, and then I like to look at the earnings date, dividend yield, and percent demand supply, and obviously anything over 1 is something in demand. Over here on the side, I like to help me, I just put down here, is it in HCD, daily or weekly, and LCD, daily and weekly? No. This tells me that in its industry group, there was 1 new buy signal today and no new sell signals. But interestingly, in the industry group, only 33 stocks overall are in a buy and 66% of the stocks are in a sell. And it tells me what the person market catcher is doing. You have the same windows over here, so typically I leave it on the revenue window here, and I leave the story over there. If I go down, I can see more fundamentals, and I'll let you stop and look at those if that interests you. I'm pretty much a technical trader, but I don't mind finding stocks that have good earnings per share growth, but that doesn't always work. On the charting platform, this light hash mark line is one of my favorite features in HGSI, and what that's giving me is the group strength. So if I want to be looking for strong groups, I'd be looking for that pointing up into the upper right-hand corner. So what I've done here is I've asked very quickly what stocks are demonstrating a person buy signal today. And, this is a stock that's clearly been going sideways. That doesn't excite me too much, so it's in a trading range. And you can see the little arrow here and the ribbon turning green. I have a number of signals here. Ring Central had pulled back, and I believe just turned. This one interests me a lot more. It's the type of stock that I like to do. I like to look for stocks that have been in an uptrend that have pulled back, especially stocks that might pull back into support. We also have the last conditional change in here. There's a lot of little dashed lines, so you can adjust that to your heart's content. I like to look at daily and weekly charts at the same time, So I've set that up as well. Now, if you think Market Watch or Radar Screen in TradeStation, you can develop sort of a spreadsheet of various indicators. No different in HGSI, except remember it's for the most part an end-of-day program. So there is a massive list of different built-in indicators and fundamental tests that you can include, including types of candlesticks, analyst recommendations, etc. And any of these could be built in for scanning purposes, or what I like to do is I like to have a fairly large list of stock parameters that I look for across the top. So for example, when I look, and there's no earnings dates, there's a bunch of ETFs that came up here. So I could turn off the ETFs if I want to, but let's just look at Alpha Pro Tech. I'm not necessarily recommending it. I know that the last close was $13.59, that it was up $1 today, which was 8%. It's down 2% over 5 days. I see today, and I'm going to tell you the difference between PBS signal and then the last daily signal. I know that today this had a PBS buy signal. Now, if the signal was yesterday, it wouldn't be today, so this one would not be green, but this one would be green because it tells me that it's during that period of time where we've had a recent buy. And then this tells me how many days away that buy signal was. So if I wanted to only look for signals that occurred within 2 days, I can adjust the parameters in what I filter. I include person daily buy signals, daily high close dojis, low close dojis, weekly signals, weekly high close dojis, low close dojis. Some of my favorite things, tells me within the industry group what the percentage of stocks are that have in a buy or a sell. The next thing I like to look at, and again, everybody can set it up themselves, is I like to look at what is the person market catcher, the 50-day average volume, what industry group is it in, what sector is it in. And so I've built a number of, or include a number of these if I want, so I can get an assessment of a stock. So this must have been a good day for COVID stocks because Alpha Pro Tech's a COVID stock. Bellor Pharma Therapeutics is another one that I've been looking at, and actually I've traded it. And again, what you see here is a stock that's pulled back, had a big gap up here, consolidated here, and it had a breakout today. Now, you have to do your own analysis, but the purpose of scanning is to define certain stock parameters that you want to see. So here, all I've scanned for are person daily buy signals. And here's a stock that I've been watching this stock, and this is kind of interesting to me. And it's interesting to me because, I'm certainly not advocating ever a $2.50 stock. But the pattern that the person market catcher is heading up, the stock has been basically sideways, and it had a buy signal today. The same thing on the weekly, a sideways stock and a buy signal. I'm always suspect that you get what you pay for, and a $2.50 stock that had a fairly big drop probably is $2.50 for a reason. Now, another thing that's built into HGSI that I just love, if I right-click, I could go to more info from the web, and I got it set at FinViz, and I'll open it up, and it will automatically open up to the ticker of interest. Now, this is important for a couple of things. If I was a cynic, I would have looked at this chart and said, oh, the program just missed a split, a reverse split. But by going into the web, I know that that wasn't the case. And I could look back and look at the fund, has there been any news or anything that might have applied to the stock to explain the drop-off. So I also could drop down here and say, how about daily bar near weekly support? And I won't pursue these because it looks like they're bond funds. But basically, in what I filtered for here, is I looked at the weekly pivot, and you had to be above or below within 3%. So I've purposely scanned for stocks that have had a PPS buy signal within 1 day, that could have been today or yesterday, that's within what I define support, weekly support, as being within 3% of the weekly pivot. And you can change that to your heart's content. Very user-friendly, and I have a lot of videos to show you how to use it. Now I might look at person daily buy and a weekly buy. Now this one considers a signal the minute it fires. A weekly buy today on Monday, you don't really know if it's going to still be a weekly buy on Friday. It depends what the stock does. So I usually set the parameter to look back a couple, 2 weeks. I could set it so it's only looking at 1 week old, so last week. I could set it for both weeks, or I could say it's in a buy, I don't care when. So I've got this set here that it's in a buy, I don't care when. And here is a stock, for example. Let's open up one that's a stock, not an ETF. Sprouts Farmer Market. And so by definition, I have found a stock that's in a weekly buy. And those that know John's work would have said it was in a high close doji a couple of weeks ago as well. And this would have been a great buy signal, and that was in late March, early April. And you could see it gave us a buy signal in late March on the daily, and then gave us another recent buy signal back here, and then a new buy signal today. So it's scanning the market. It's not necessarily telling you what the chart shows, but it's showing you stocks that meet certain criteria. Now, sometimes when I see something like this, I go, I wonder if there's any industry groups that are leading the story here. Now, one way is to look at here, but what I'm going to go back here is, and just do this. And I could see that there was a ton of biotech in this list today. Well, a ton, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 biotechs. These have been, some of them have been leaders such as CGen, Seattle Genetics, and Regeneron. I do work with these guys, and they had a recent approval in breast cancer. And here is a daily chart. Here is when you look for a pullback to support. Already was in a buy signal, and we've got a new buy signal today after a flag breakout or pennant breakout there. So this tool is helping me find stocks that meet certain criteria. Those that follow John in the room or have got the TradeStation lifetime package know that there's a thing called a Trilogy Buy, which we've also coded in here. And this helps find stocks that meet a number of John's criteria. And here's one that I thought looked interesting. Now, I already am in it, so I wouldn't say I'd change anything. But here's a stock, and it tells us it's in the infrastructure software. If I read over here, it's got something to do with cloud computing and security. We actually use them in my business. And here you have a stock with a pullback and a new buy signal. Now, if you want me to make things bigger, I can have more days or less days, and that gives you a little bit better visualization. Shopify is a stock that I currently own as well, and I have to decide what to do with Shopify because it has earnings, I believe, on Thursday on 5, so Wednesday, I guess, here. So that's something, but interestingly, if I look at this candle here, not only did I have a buy signal today, but I have a daily high close doji. The stock's not in an uptrend in this period of time. It's going sideways. And with a little pullback and a close above the top of that doji, not only do I have a buy signal, but this turned green because I have a high close doji. Now, based upon what I know, I have a strong uptrend sideways move and a breakout potential here. But earnings on this guy will be interesting. Last quarter, earnings were fantastic, and it got us this day here. But the stock traded up on earnings, and I was owning it at the time and trading it on this day. It traded up to 500 and opened at 568. Closed at 531, and the high of the day was 593. It was a crazy move, and maybe it was giving us a signal that the market wasn't very healthy. The earnings were unbelievable. You could see here that last quarter it had an 800% earnings per share change. It's a risky stock. It trades, it doesn't make money, and it's a 600 plus stock. Now I might want to look at how many new daily HCDs do we have, 97. So I would certainly hope that if I pick any of these, here you are, Doji. Here's your, two of these were high close Dojis, and it lights up green right there. I might want to look at high close Doji today and a new PBS buy. And again, I haven't filtered out for ETFs, so let me just drop down here. And there are a couple things in here. Let's look at Netflix. All right. We all know Netflix. It's a name brand. Everybody probably has it in their portfolio. On Netflix, uptrend, pullback. And today we have a high close doji on the daily and a new person buy signal. Flag on the weekly as well. This has been a leader in the COVID economy and perhaps it's getting ready to run. It trades at a multiple of 86. Not that most of us who are technicians are as concerned about multiples, but look at the growth rate for the next quarter of 203%. That's interesting. Here's Shopify. I know Team is another stock that I've been watching that today, small pullback, it broke out 2 days before it had a doji. If I look at the weekly, it's breaking out above a doji as well. I think technically the weekly doesn't count as a high close doji because it's been in an uptrend for a month. This one was pulled back some, but here's a stock that has the criteria of the scan, and we found a number of stocks that look interesting. Continuing on bullish, how many have a new person weekly buy? And I can set this up to look at 1 week away, 2 weeks away, because as I mentioned, the weekly bar doesn't close until 4 p.m. on Friday. So we could lose that. So you could sit here, and I can't remember what I filtered. Let's just take a look here. Yeah, I have a 1. So that would mean bars occurring this week or last week. 0 is considered this week. 1 is considered last week. So if I look around enough, I'll find something probably that fired last week. A stock that I know a lot about is Amarin, which has been just crazy. They came out with a fish oil extract that reduces death from heart disease. And as a male of 62, that sounds great to me. Then they lost a patent event, and you could see what happened. So again, continuing down the built-in scan, HCD weekly new. Again, we could find stocks here, and these have to have a new HCD today for them to count. They're looking back at this doji here, not the doji right there. I gave it 3 weeks to close above the doji. So these all have a high close doji in it. And then I sometimes will like to compare or combine a weekly high close doji with a PPS buy within the last 2 trading days. And this gives me a very small list, but I found some great stocks there. In fact, near the end of the day, I bought this stock on Friday, and it behaved well today. And why did I buy this? It's that story I showed you before, sort of my favorite pattern when I look at something. I've got a PMC that's clearly heading up on both the daily and the weekly. I've got a stock that's pretty much been going sideways now for a month. And at the time of this buy signal was kind of sideways as well. And what I have is a breakout on Friday with a positive divergence, bullish divergence on the PMC. And that's what I like to see. And having the weekly sell signal and the weekly high close doji lighting up here also is something I like to see. So I can scan for various parameters that are bullish. I can scan for various parameters that are bearish. So this is my all bear sort, but if I look at daily sells, Interestingly, we had a super strong day in the market today. And the filter here, let's see if it's 0 and 1 or just 0. I believe it's looking at today or Friday, and that's why there's still plenty. Yeah, it's looking at today or Friday. So within the last 2 trading days, these are the stocks that have exhibited a person sell. So let's just look at one. Are there any that I know here? I always like to look at things I know. Let's look at Tyson's Food. So, hard to see it with there. Now you see why I go with the fat signals, but there's an arrow above the bar, so it's a new sell. You have the ribbon here, and over here you can see it's breaking down on the weekly, a shooting star last week, and it traded below that. Perhaps tomorrow it'll even get a sell signal on the weekly. So I can scan the same scans as I showed you, daily sell near resistance. We don't see a lot near resistance. A daily sell with a weekly sell. These are stocks. If it's in a weekly sell, you know it's been a long-term, before I even look at a stock, downtrend. And then because it's a daily sell, that tells me short-term it had to move higher, and now it's having a directional change to the downside. So let's just look at one, and let's pick Bruker, genomics provider. So here you have a stock, clearly it's been in a downtrend, and it's been in a sell signal going back in late January. It's had a bit of a bounce here, but really nothing when you think about how the market has bounced. And you could see that within that bounce, it's had a number of buy and sell signals. It had a buy signal here, and today it had a new sell signal. So if I'm looking for stocks potentially to start considering for potential shorts, this is giving me some of the signals that I might be interested in looking at. I could look at daily Trilogy sells, which I continue to work on and improve. I can look at LCD weekly and a PPS sell daily within 2 days. On the weekend, I find a number of stocks to consider shorting on there. Why do I like this? Because if it's truly a weekly high close doji, a low close doji rather, the stock had to be in an uptrend and then a doji form, and then have a bar that closed below the low of that doji. Clearly that's happened on the weekly. So not only has the weekly turned south, I also had a sell signal come into the stock yesterday being Friday. So a number of different scans here, and this is really the power of HGSI. You get the filters, which we continually refine. You get the indicators I mentioned on the chart, just to give you an idea of what's included in the package. Everything here is included, and John's stuff, let me see if I can find it here where it's supposed to be. Where's his indicators? His buy-sell indicator, the market catcher, the pivots of the various time frames, and the last conditional change, and high close doji, although it's not really an indicator per se. I don't change color. I don't write something on the chart. I actually put it over in that text box. Those are included. The other thing, so you get the filters, you get the chart patterns, which you can easily customize. And then something else that's really cool in HGSI is, what about the person that doesn't want to do that much work? Well, within HGSI, there are these things called smart groups. Today was a strong day, so let's look at bullish. And you get, based upon some parameters that John and I put together, the top 25 stocks with a person daily buy. Here's that CrowdStrike Holdings that I like. Or how about the top daily buy near weekly support? I said those were bonds, not too interested. Daily buy with weekly buy. So this set right here is done every time you do a full update of the program. It's server based, so the server pushes what are the key stocks based upon the parameters that we have built in. So that's really cool. Those are called smart groups. So just to summarize, I think this is a fantastic implementation of John's work. The charting platform has the key indicators as well as whatever you can think of in addition. The scanning functions, the fact that I can get all that with about 5 minutes after I hit my button. And lastly, those smart groups. So hope you liked what I showed you. I hope you can see the power. I was kind of hoping that there would be a new update out so I could show you that I update all those scans in as little as 5 or 6 minutes. And of course, there's nothing up because I updated it before I started. I hope you have a great rest of the year, and hopefully you guys will be in areas where you can actually get out of your house. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good night.